Better late than never, Blairy. Here we are back again for League of Our Own after sickness in the Paladin household finally claimed another victim. That was me. Blairy, good to see you, mate. It's been a couple of weeks. How have you been, mate?
Yeah, obviously missed our chat last week, Goran, but it's great to see that you're feeling a lot better.
A lot better.
I jumped on last week and I was ready to go.
Oh, don't say
and
that.
and you called me from your bedroom. You couldn't get up, so we had the week off. So it's great to see you, bro. Great to catch up with you again, and I'm glad that you're feeling a lot better now.
Our household is just like every other Kiwi and Australian household this winter, full of bugs.
Oh.
My wife is a school teacher, primary school locally, and they've had issues with not only kids being sick, but teachers being sick. And yeah, we've just been riddled with it. No, I think I've done a pretty good job of sort of dancing around it and trying to avoid it. I've had a couple of sort of like, coughs and splutters throughout the course of winter, but last week it just absolutely hammered me. And we had that very brief video call when I was laying low in bed last week, and I thought you're probably going to like do a screenshot and show everybody how messed up I looked. But I'm glad you haven't, right?
Now you said it, I should have bloody recorded screen recorded our conversation just so that everyone knew that you were lying in bed. But yeah, man, I didn't do that. I'm not that stink. I'm just glad that you're back and ready to go, man.
Oh, thanks, mate. Yeah, and I apologise for you getting everything set up and then only to be let down by yours truly. But yeah, here we are. We're back again, and hopefully here through to the end of the grand final and maybe even beyond here on League of Our Own. So remember to like and follow and subscribe and share our video and our podcast. And hopefully we'll get more people who are keen on Kiwi Rugby League watching and listening. We'll talk a little bit about the Warriors up against the Parramatta Eels this weekend, this Friday night. But first of all, mate, we've got to address the elephant in the room, and it's everywhere we look over the last few days. Kiwis hooker, Kiwis utility, Brandon Smith, and what he's been caught up with. What's your impression of how the story has developed over the last few days, and were you surprised to read about it?
Yeah, Goran, definitely surprised to read about it. And I guess the first thought was, obviously when the news come out, was, oh, that's why he got stopped in Queensland with the police. And now that there's been obviously a revelation to the story, and it's been a couple of days now, things have softened up a little bit. But to be honest, Brandon Smith's a good dude. But he seems to find himself in these situations. I'm not saying this situation in particular, but there's always something in the media with Brandon Smith, and this one's another thing, another distraction or another headline he doesn't need. I think, he's only just back from ACL injury. He's only just left the Roosters and now playing for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and having Wayne Bennett there trying to help resurrect a little bit of a confidence in himself and his footy ability to be able to come and perform well there. So a headline that Brandon Smith doesn't want and doesn't need. Very, very shocked, and must be a little bit disappointed at the start. But now listening and reading a few of the headlines, we don't know the full story, Goran. We don't need to know the full story. It's for us, I know as much as you do, or the people that are listening in or watching our podcast, is what we read in social media. That's all we know. We don't know the deep insights to it. So fingers crossed, hopefully everything smooths over and everything's right. Not the news that he needs, but hopefully, fingers crossed, everything's okay from his end.
The frustrating thing from the fans' point of view is we know how devastating he can be when he's on the field. And since he's been back on field for the Rabbitohs, he's showing what he can do.
Yeah.
He's showing that he can be a vital member of Wayne Bennett's side. And then he gets caught up in whatever this is. And look, we don't need to talk about the allegations and things like that, but therein lies the frustration, because he can be a hell of a weapon for an NRL side, and when the Pacific Championships come around, if he's been playing well for the Bunnies, there's no reason why you wouldn't select him and have him as part of your rotation, middle rotation, or one of your hooking options. And I just wish we would see more focus from Brandon Smith. What I want to know is, what is the deterrent in the NRL to avoid these sorts of situations and getting caught up in mess like this? Because we see it nearly like month after month. And I want to go back to late last year. Josh Addo-Carr, he failed a drug test when the Bulldogs were on their way to the finals. And he loses his contract. But then he's almost immediately picked up by the Parramatta Eels. And this weekend up against the Warriors, he's playing his 200th NRL game. So not a great deal of harm done there. And then everybody knows the story of Ezra Mam and what he got up to. Where is the deterrent to stop players doing this sort of thing?
Man, rugby league's a funny game, Goran, and there's so many distractions, So many distractions, not only when you're trying to come into the game, but even more so when you start playing at that elite level. We all know Brandon Smith as a funny guy and a larrikin and loves to have a bit of fun and most probably loves to party as well. And sometimes that can attract unwanted attention from people in the public that may do some of these things that we're talking about, and then people get caught up in those things as well. So, it's hard. It's hard being a professional athlete. I don't know what the deterrent is, because you just mentioned a few names and they're still running around in the game of rugby league. So I don't know what the deterrent is. You can take steroids and have 3-4 years off the game, and then still be able to come back into the game, because that's your ban. You can, until you're guilty, you can still play the game. So I actually don't know what the answer is to the deterrent to stopping these players do it. I think you've just got to. I think it's a personal thing. I think it's got to be, your beliefs, what you stand for, who you are as a person, and what you believe in, to being able to say yes, no to these things, or don't put yourself in those situations. I think, I remember when I was at the West Tigers, and I'm not saying I'm a clean skin, Goran. I think they had a lot, when I went down in 2012, a lot of the shooting in the King's Cross was happening at the time. I think that at the time there, someone like Jared Hayne might have tried to get shot at and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when I moved to Sydney, I just didn't want to put myself in those situations. I just didn't want to be in those places where, hey, he's a high profile player, we're going to do things to this person. So I just didn't put myself in those situations, Goran. So I think you've got to be, it's your image that you've got to protect. Yeah. It's who you are as a person that you got to protect. And if you put yourself in these situations, if you put yourself around these people, sometimes people take advantage of you.
Hey, look, we'll move on from the Bunnies and the Rabbits and Brandon Smith, and we'll sort of steer closer to home. The Warriors, and they've got this upcoming game against the Eels at Mount Smart Stadium, but they still find themselves in fourth position, Blairy, which I think we need to really praise them for that, especially given where they've come from. And I'm talking about last season. They finished 13th last season on the back of what was a really awesome year of 2023. And when you think about what happened with that squad on the back of last season, where Sean Johnson retires, they lose Adam Whenua-Blake to the Sharks. Tohu Harris is an injury retirement. He's forced into retirement in the off-season. And what's happened through this campaign as well, where you lose your co-captain Mitch Barnett to an ACL, you lose your talismanic halfback and Luke Metcalf as well to another ACL, and they still find themselves with 2 weeks to run in the regular season inside the top four. So I think we've got to give credit where it's due, don't we, mate?
Definitely. Being consistent, Goran, consistent. And I think to get into the top four throughout the 27 rounds, you have to be a consistent team and you have to be pretty healthy. And I know the Warriors didn't start with their full strength team, but on their journey, they've had some players step in that have got the jobs done, led by their spine. Luke Metcalf, Wade Egan, Chanel Harris-Tavita, Charles Nickel-Klukstad at the back. And they've had some consistency through that part of their team for the majority of the season. But I definitely think they done all the hard work early in the season. Disappointed with their first game. Obviously, the big the big thrashing from the Melbourne Storm, but have kicked on ever since. So I think, yeah, it's a round of applause for the Warriors and their consistency, because it takes effort, it takes, I guess, buy-in, it takes sacrifice, it takes understanding the game plan, it takes everyone in your top 30 players to be a big part of getting them to where they are. And you spoke about it, last year's team finishing where they did, having Sean Johnson, Tohu Harris and those boys, and then the ACL injuries, to do what they've done thus far, to be in the top 4 and competing and trying to stay in that position. Hats off, credit where credit's due for the Warriors.
A really remarkable effort from the Warriors to be in this position. What would you rather, though? Place 4th and face a trip to Canberra in week 1 against the Raiders, or drop down into the bottom half of the top 8 and maybe host a final in your first week? What's going to set you up better?
I would, but I would love to play on home soil in front of a packed out stadium. But I think the most important part of this competition is to finish in the top 4.
Yeah.
And going after, if they finish 4th, going after first position and trying to either get the week off. I think that's the most important part. But man, as a fan now, sitting back watching, man, would love to host the game at Go Media Stadium. But in saying that, Goran, I know if you obviously do lose to Canberra, you'll get a home game your second week. So, I think that the best position is to finish 4th, go after the Canberra Raiders. At worst, you lose, but you also get a home game in front of a packed out stadium back in Go Media back home.
So in other words, just keep on winning, and it starts this Friday against the Parramatta Eels. And obviously I've got split loyalties, I suppose you'd say, like I don't know.
Torn.
I don't know which one's the devil and which one's the angel. But look, I've said to you before, my ties to the Eels run deep, and it's my favourite team. Even though I desperately want to see the Warriors do well, when they are pitted against each other, ultimately deep down I'd prefer the Eels to win. I remember. And it was going through the COVID times, those COVID years when the Warriors were away. And you and we may have been working on a game together for Sky Sport. The Eels ran riot in the first half of this game. I can't remember the score. I think the Eels ended up winning. But in the first half, the Eels were just majestic. And it got to half time where we're supposed to have a chat about how the Warriors let themselves down and what they can do better in the second half. And I realised I hadn't even watched the Warriors. I was just watching the blue and gold and what they were doing. I had no idea what the Warriors were up to.
But I definitely think this is a huge game. This is a huge game, and I know you'd be torn. With it, and I know how much you love the Parramatta Eels. I know how much you love the Parramatta Eels, and I think they're doing a great job. The Parramatta Eels, Jason Riles is getting them set. They're setting them up for 2026 and playing a style of football. I reckon they used to play a little bit with Brad Arthur, where they moved the ball around through the middle of the park. I think when you look at Dylan Walker and what he's brought to the team, he's now become a third ball playing half, which he did at the Warriors as well. But you've got the threat of a couple of good forwards with footwork and ball skills. And with the way that Dylan Walker carries the ball through the middle of the park and plays deep into the line, allows Mitch Moses and the likes to be able to get a bit wider and get their ball to the edges really quickly. So there's going to be a great challenge for the Warriors up against this Parramatta team. And I don't know, you're going to go for Parra, You have to.
Yeah. I have to. Yeah. I won't be going to the game, though. It's too dangerous for me. The last time I went to a game, I was dressed up in all the Parramatta attire. I think we spoke about this last year. And I was up in the Mad Butcher's Lounge, and a couple of guys nearly threw me out the window for what I was wearing. So it's sort of put me off going to an Eels game in Auckland. I don't think I'll be doing it ever again. I'll just watch it from the comfort of my own home. But, as this is a Kiwi rugby league podcast, I want to help the Warriors fans and the Warriors. If you're watching Andrew Webster, things to look out for. I'm sure they know exactly what to look out for, but it's all about highlighting things for the New Zealand audience. And so I've watched a lot of Parramatta Eels rugby league over the course of 2025, and so there are a few things that need to be addressed and taken care of on Friday night from a Warriors point of view. And so I guess I'll do that now.
Rattle them off for them.
First of all, they've got incredible aerial threat in Zac Lomax. That goes without saying. And so with Zac Lomax parked up on the right-hand side of the field, he'll be looking to take cross-field kicks from Mitch Moses, who's very accurate. So it's a big night for guys like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck and Adam Pompey, who are parked up out on the Warriors' left edge. And the advice that I would offer, if it means anything at all, would be to let him have it in the air and then absolutely carve him as soon as his feet hit the deck. Because he's one of these guys like Daniel Tupou and Xavier Coates. It's almost like it's a given that they're going to catch the ball in the air. It's what you do. It's a twofold thing. One, it's pressure on Mitch Moses, so he doesn't get an accurate kick away. But then if he does, the second part of it is get around Zac Lomax when he hits the deck.
I think this week's an important part for that whole left edge of the Warriors when you've got someone like Zac Lomax that can compete and get up for the ball. And I understand the teams do their homework and they would know this anyway, Goran. So we're not saying anything that they wouldn't know already, or most people listening that watch rugby league and watch Zac Lomax play would think the same. So it's an important week for the left edge of the Warriors to be able to get back and support Roger Tuivasa-Sheck anytime he competes for the ball. The other option is, Goran, if he puts it on the money on the try line, maybe you back your defence and just punch the ball out. Maybe you back your defence and punch the ball. If you're going to go up and you can see, yep, I'm going to cleanly catch this ball and it's going to be my ball, Roger, you catch the ball. But if it's a 50-50 and you think, hold on a minute, I'm no chance of getting this, but it's directly on the try line where you're not allowed to touch a player in the air unless you're competing and going to collect the ball, maybe it's punch the ball out, back your defence, go for the short dropout, maybe you get it back. That could be an option because, man, I've seen too many times this year where he's just competed so hard that he's just outlet people. Even when he's landed on the ground, Goran, he's got big enough hands to be able to get the flick pass away. So that's why I'm saying, and everyone would see this as well, that it's a big night for their left edge of the Warriors to get around and support because he is their target. Mitch Moses can stand on the far left-hand side and then look like he's going to kick left, last minute, flick his leg to the right and kick to their left-hand corner.
On the other side of the field, it's a really interesting scenario where Dylan Brown has forced his way back into the first grade squad, not as the 6, but as the left centre. And we know over the years he's developed into one of the finest defensive halves in the game. And I'm assuming that's why Jason Riles has used him in that position when there's a lack of depth or quality in the centre position for the Eels. He's gone, well, look, Dylan, defensively sound, get out there, mate. But what it also provides them with when they've got possession of the football is another halves option on field that can kick, that can run, that can pass. And we've spoken till we're blue in the face about some of the issues that the Warriors have had in their right edge defence. And when the Eels get going, and maybe it's a pass from Moses to Papali or Walker, and then you've got Brown with Josh Addo-Carr on the outside, who's got the most line breaks in the competition. Again, the Warriors' right side defence needs to be on high alert for other reasons, not aerial kicks, but those shifts with ball in hand.
Well, they love to use their three middles up through the middle of the park, and I think you saw the difference of Dylan Walker last week. They started him in the middle of the park before he went off for HIA. But the way they can move the ball, the way, and Warriors fans will know this, how important he was for the Warriors through the middle of the park, and how he played nice and straight and square, that engaged players, that freed up the likes of 2024 Sean Johnson to be able to play their shape into Chanel Harris-Tavita or into Tamaire. So the Warriors know what Dylan Walker can do. The thing is, he's got some quality front rows around him that he can dig into the line and play short, or even at the last minute flick that ball to Mitch Moses, who then just zings the ball to Papali, who also can give it to Dylan Brown. With the strength that Dylan Brown has, with the left foot that he possesses, and also he has a little kicking game because of his halves, I think they provide a threat throughout the field, which the Warriors would obviously know what Dylan Walker can bring through the middle of the park. So not only that, we've spoken about the early threats of the high balls and what Zac Lomax can do, it's the middle of the park too, and what Dylan Walker can do to manipulate the defensive line to be able to find the right options 9 times out of 10.
There's another guy that I want to make mention of, and his name is Ryley Smith. He's the hooker for the Eels, and he's come on in leaps and bounds this season. His kick pressure is really good, and I watched the Eels beat the Roosters last weekend, and he was exceptional in that area. However, the Roosters only had one real kicking option because Sam Walker went off injured with a head knock in probably the first quarter of the game. The benefit that the Warriors have is that you never really know where the kick is coming from. Yeah, Tanah Boyd's got the better kicking game. It's longer, it's more accurate. But with Tanah Boyd and Chanel Harris-Tavita, you got two quality kicking options, really. And then chuck Tamaire Martin in there as well. So maybe it nullifies his kick pressure somewhat, Blairy.
You're right. Warriors are very fortunate to have a left foot kicker and a right foot kicker. So there's options for them to go both sides when they go to kicking. Tanah Boyd, Chanel Harris-Tavita, on the back of watching their performance last week, are on a couple of their best games when it comes to just running. So although, you're speaking about the Parramatta threats, there's also threats on the other side. But I'm loving your coaching tips. Keep them rolling. What else we got for Parramatta?
Look, I can toss up all the names under the sun. It's up to the Warriors to take care of their own backyard. And as long as they do that, they're a better quality team than the Eels. I was quite surprised, and we didn't get the opportunity to talk about this last week, that Andrew Webster rushed Rocco Berry straight back into the centre position. But he definitely solidified things out on that right edge. He helped out Dallin Watene-Zelezniak a great deal, even if I thought he was injured at the end of that game against the Titans where he took a knee.
And he's a quality player. And when I saw him go down, I'm thinking, not this again, because, man, he's had a bad run of injuries. And, yes, we said maybe bring him back through New South Wales Cup just to get some game fitness and some game intensity into him. But not the Warriors, straight back in there, the big dog, and go get your job done. And I thought, man, he's a key role to this Warriors pack, this Warriors team, because what he can do on the edge, the way he carries the ball, the way he gets out on kick chase, he plays a big and integral part of what the Warriors do. So it's great to see him back. It's definitely great to see him back. And, we spoke about the Parramatta team and the threats that they have. The Warriors also have their threats. And I mentioned it earlier, I thought the two halves played their best attacking or running football that they have played in a long time this year. I reckon since Tanah Boyd's come into the team. And we spoke about, obviously, Luke Metcalf and then Tanah Boyd stepping up, and what Luke Metcalf has that Tanah Boyd doesn't have, his speed and being able to get on the outside. And we spoke about how Tanah Boyd's just safe. He just goes through, he plays early, he kicks to the corner. But I think the last couple of times that he's played in the Warriors jersey, he's actually become more of a running threat than a passing threat. So he's working it out that I've got to run first. That's the mindset of every half. You have to have a run first mentality to create the space for others. And he's poking his nose through. He's getting quick play of the ball. He looks like he's confident in himself and his ability. So the threat around the halves is obviously important. And then you've got someone like Marata, who will be coming up against his old club. You've got Leka Halasima, who's there as well, who just loves breaking tackles. And then you've got, Fish through the middle of the park. You've got some of these young guys coming through, Eddie Edemir, Toiava, Tanah Smith. I think these boys, Dimitrik, these boys are coming into their own, and it's an important part the last couple of games leading into this top four chase or holding this top four spot. And then hopefully coming against the Canberra Raiders, where these guys just keep getting minutes under their belt, keep building confidence. And it's an opportunity for the Warriors at home, one of their last season home games for the regular season, to be able to get a win, clean up your Parramatta Eels in front of their home fans, and then go after this next game before you head into that September football.
I find the whole Tanah Boyd selection quite fascinating. It's something that we've spoken about off and on over the weeks since Luke Metcalf was ruled out for the season, because it was either Tanah Boyd or it was Tamaiti Martin. And you go back a couple of weeks ago, and Tamaiti was given the keys to the kingdom in that game against the Bulldogs, and then he suffers a head knock, and the Warriors lose heavily, and then we don't see him again for a couple of weeks, and Tanah Boyd retains the 7 jersey, even though Tamaiti is back. So I remember we spoke about Tanah Boyd before the Dragons game. We said, look, he could go out there, he could play the house down, he could play the game of his life. What Andrew Webster has said at the press conference after the Bulldogs loss, it means that Tamaiti is the 7 moving forward. But on the basis of his Dragons and Titans performances over the last couple of weeks, it's almost like we've moved on from that narrative, and Tamaiti is now, he resumes his role as the 14. One part of me is impressed in what I've seen from Tanah Boyd, because you're right, like he's sort of moving away from the safe rugby league that we've seen, and he's taking on the line more. But I wish we had have been able to see Tamaiti in that role for longer. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, I'll take an improved Tanah Boyd, but I'm also gutted for Tamaiti that we didn't get to see him in the halfback position for longer.
Well, no disrespect to the opposition that the Warriors have played against. I wouldn't say the strongest defensive teams in the competition. And must be stating the obvious. So the confidence is a big thing in the game of rugby league. So he's obviously had a different mindset. Webster's obviously had a chat to him, mate. We need you to run the ball a little bit more, be more of a threat. And he's taken on the coach's calls. The coaches asked him. He seems to have done it, and it's paying dividends to the football that they're playing. They look like more of an attacking threat. But I'd love to see him up against a quality side. Raiders, if they finish in the top 4, he's there when they play against the Raiders. Big opposition, strong quality. You got back rows running at you, but also being brave enough to run the ball up against that quality side. So although I don't think the two teams that they've played have been the strongest opposition, it does build some confidence for Tanah Boyd and what he's been able to deliver the last couple of weeks with his game. So on the back of that, just keep building the confidence, roll into this Parramatta side at home, and repeat that again, Goran. Repeat that again.
Or not. Or not, Blairy. Yeah. We shall see. Blairy, it's time for Betcha This Happens, and for round 26, it's an easy start. I've already locked in our first bet, our first leg of the multi, because the Bulldogs are paying $1.07 against the Penrith Panthers, $8.50. And you and I are talking on a Tuesday night. So by the time this goes out on Wednesday afternoon, the odds for the Dogs may have gotten even shorter. Is that the correct terminology? They may have even closed it. Maybe it's unbackable at that point. But the Panthers have gone with an approach of, we're not going to make the top 4. We are cemented inside the top 8. So here's an opportunity to rest literally everybody, and then hit the ground running a week before finals. I suppose this is an incredible strategy from Ivan Cleary, and a guy who probably thought, a couple of months ago, they were stone cold motherless last. They weren't going to feature in finals. So what a luxury to be able to rest players ahead of a finals run.
It's unbelievable. I reckon this has never been done before. To rest, I reckon, pretty much your starting 13. You're starting 13 to rest them more and concede, we're not going to make the top 4. We're going to be in the bottom 4, but I'm going to rest my starting 13. Never been heard of, never seen it before. But if one team can do things right and understand what it takes to win a trophy at the end of the season, it's the Penrith Panthers. So in Ivan Cleary, they trust.
Yeah. And the reason they believe in him, it's because he's won the 4 trophies prior.
Definitely.
And they've been in 5 straight grand finals. So, yeah, the Penrith Panthers paying $8.50 with basically a New South Wales Cup team going up against a full-strength Bulldogs outfit. Dogs, we've locked them in at $1.07. Move to Friday night, and it's the Warriors $1.57 and the Parramatta Eels $2.40. I think the blue and gold might be too strong, and I'm backing my Parramatta boys at $2.40. Yeah, got to, mate. Well, I think we said it earlier. I just have to. Melbourne Storm $1.65. Blairy, they're the favourites against the Sydney Roosters. However, the Storm are resting a number of players, and Harry Grant is unavailable through suspension with that shoulder. I'm backing the Roosters for this one because I just feel like there's nowhere for the Storm to go in terms of ladder position, and there's everything to gain for the Roosters. So I'm backing the Roosters at $2.25. Let's give a special mention before we move on, though, as well, to a Kiwi winger. Haven't seen him since round 4. Will Warbrick is back this week. He's been named in the extended squad. We sincerely hope to see him out on the field up against the Roosters. It's been a long time out, suffering with symptoms of concussion, mate.
Yeah, it's great to see Will come back through Queensland Cup last weekend, and then obviously been named on the extended bench. It's like when you see any rugby league player with concussion or even being able to rest them on the sidelines for a long stint, to be able to come back in and still put your best foot forward is the main thing, but to be healthy at the same time. So it's great. It was great to see Will Warbrick back and, yes, named on the extended bench.
It's just a scary thing to go through, I would imagine, as a professional athlete, because with most injuries, you've got the length of time spent on the sidelines ahead of you. You know that if you do an ACL, it's 9 to 12 months. You know that if you do a hamstring tweak, you might be back in 4 to 6 weeks. But with something like this, where it's not the category 1, category 2, I'm going to be out this week or I might be back in a fortnight's time, it's how long is a piece of string, Blairy? And that must be a really frightening proposition for somebody like Will or anybody in the professional sports environment.
Yeah, it's tough because, having head knocks and then have multiple head knocks is bad. Obviously, life after football, eh? And I guess for this one, it was an incident back in round
4, I think.
Very
early
back
doors, mate.
Back in round 4, and he's only just played his first game back from then. So that's a long time on the sidelines. But at the same time, man, as a former player, the health is more important than the game of rugby league. So we wish, obviously, Warbrick, it's great to see him out there, but the healthy return.
We move on to the Canberra Raiders and the Tigers. Gosh, that was a crazy game that the Tigers played against the Cowboys, eh? Man, I thought they had it in the bag, and then Drinkwater went bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, man. They're playing a style of football that suits their team. That's Benji Marshall. They got the players that can do things special. And they've been much improved. They've been much improved, and they'll be happy in the direction that they're going to with some of the quality players that they have, and can't wait to see them continue, in the future.
Yeah. Well, this week they are away to the Raiders in Canberra. Canberra Raiders paying $1.24. I'll back them. The Tigers, if you're interested, they are at $4.10. Dragons and Seagulls, finding it hard to separate these two. The Dragons are paying $1.87, the slight favourite. Manly Seagulls paying $1.95. I'm going to back Manly just because as the Roosters up against the Storm, there's something to play for this weekend. So they've got to empty the tank against the Dragons. North Queensland Cowboys have a Queensland derby against the Broncos. The Cowboys are paying $2.65. The Broncos $1.48. Broncos. Sharks and the Knights.
Yeah, it's been a tough season. To be honest. It's been a tough season for the Knights, and I feel for everyone there, and the players. They just haven't had the season that they would have loved to have, Goran. So it's been a disappointing year, and they'll be happy to try and finish off on a high for sure, but don't know if they'll be able to get a job done.
Nah, the odds reflect a difficult season for the Knights. $5.75 up against the Sharks, $1.14. So I'll take the Sharks at $1.14. And then to round out our 8-leg multi in round 26, the penultimate round of the NRL regular season, it's the Dolphins paying $1.53 and the Gold Coast Titans $2.55. The Dolphins have Cody Nikarima back this week, so let's lock in the Dolphins at $1.53. That is an 8-leg multi paying $36.06. I'll put $1 on that. Bet responsibly on the Betcha app, R18, and all of that. Blairy, I think we've finally made it to the end of this episode. My throat has threatened to give out on me multiple times. Hopefully I'll be able to get that out in the edit. But yeah, we're back, baby. We're back.
We're back, Goran, and mate, whatever you do, bro, weave your magic, make it happen, and then we'll push it all out to our listeners and our viewers as well. So, man, appreciate you always. Another episode done and dusted. Rugby league, Kiwi players in the NRL, and exciting times ahead.
And thanks so much for not taking a screenshot of me in bed last week when we were on that video call, man. Most appreciated.
Sweet as.